Imagine a bank that's not bound by borders, run by people like you and me, where every decision is up for debate. That's compound finance in a nutshell. It's like a bank, but a lot cooler. You can lend, borrow, and earn interest just like in a regular bank. Here's the twist. It's all on the blockchain, and it's transparent, and anyone can join the conversation. With Compound, users can lend and borrow various cryptocurrencies directly without the need for intermediaries. Here's how it works. Users supply assets like Ethereum, DAI, or USDC to Compound smart contracts. In return, they earn interest on their deposits as they are providing liquidity to the platform. And those who supply assets as collateral can also borrow other supported cryptocurrencies against their holdings. Compound's interest rates aren't fixed. They change based on how much people are borrowing and lending. And let's not forget about governance. Compound holders have the real power through the comp token. They can propose and vote on changes to the protocol, ensuring that it evolves in line with the community consensus. Compound V1 was the first version of Compound Finance launched in 2017. Users who lent their assets earned interest, while those who borrowed had to provide collateral. Interest rates changed based on supply and demand, and there wasn't a token for governance, and decisions were made by developers. It ran on a single contract, and this version was eventually deprecated in June 2019. Compound V2 was launched in 2019. In V2, each asset had its own treasury contract. Accounting was also distributed. Compound V2 introduced several key mechanisms to improve the efficiency, stability, and functionality of the protocol. Like the C ratio interest rate model, it adjusts rates based on asset liquidity utilization. Higher utilization led to higher borrowing rates, while lower utilization led to lower rates. Rates are optimized based on supply and demand. They also introduce asset-specific collateral factors, streamlining the collateral use and reducing the risk of under-collateralized loans. V2 also introduced the comp token, granting holder voting rights to propose and decide on protocol changes. Compound V2 did introduce several improvements over V1, but it still faced some challenges that Compound V3 aimed to address. Firstly, the C ratio interest rate model was way too complex, which made it really challenging to navigate the platform effectively. Secondly, there was still the risk of under-collateralization, even after the asset-specific collateral factors, especially if the asset prices experience a significant volatility, which could then lead to potential losses and instability within the protocol. Thirdly, while the comp governance token allowed users to participate in protocol governance, there were still concerns about the distribution and concentration of voting powers. This issue raised questions about decentralization and fairness of governance decisions. Compound realized that they needed to step up their game to stay ahead in the world of decentralized finance. So they introduced Compound V3 with much simpler interest rates, better collateral rules, and lower fees. Now, let's take a closer look at the features and inner workings of Compound V3, what sets it apart from its earlier versions. Firstly, the major feature is the single borrowable asset model. This restricts users to borrowing only the base assets of each market. Currently, there are two major markets being active, the USDC and the Ethereum. This model simplifies borrowing by focusing on the primary assets within each market, streamlining the borrowing process and potentially reducing the complexity for users. In the USDC markets, users can supply different assets as collateral to borrow USDC, which include Ethereum, Wrapped Bitcoin, Uniswap tokens, Chainlink tokens, and Compound tokens. As of April 29, 2024, the total value of assets supplied as collateral for the USDC market is $1.02 billion. The most preferred assets for borrowing USDC are Wrapped Bitcoin and Wrapped Ethereum. Together, they make nearly 92% of the total collateral. In total, users have borrowed $415 million USDC from the Compound's V3's USDC market. In Compound's Ethereum market, users can supply specific assets as collateral to borrow ETH. These include Wrapped Staked ETH, Rocket Pool staked ETH, and Coinbase staked ETH. As of April 29, 2024, the total value of assets supplied as collateral for the Ethereum market is $301.5 million. From the chart, it's clear that staked ETH reigns as the top choice for borrowing Ethereum, with over 99% of the share. In the Ethereum market, as of April 28, 2024, the Compound's V3 Ethereum market saw total ETH borrowed reach to 86.78 million, a whopping 150% increase from last year. The second important feature is the decoupled interest rate. In V3, only the base asset, like the USDC, earns interest in the markets. Collateral assets, unlike in V2, do not earn interest. Previously, the rates for supplying and borrowing were linked, but now they are independent. Both supply and borrow rates depend on how much of the assets are being used. So the protocol has more control over each rate, adjusting them separately based on demand. Let's break down some of the most important terms that we need to understand in this aspect. Supply APR. It represents an annual percentage rate earned by those who supply assets to the Compound protocol. And borrow APR is the annual percentage rate paid to borrowers who take out assets from Compound. Utilization rate measures how much of the available supply of an asset is being borrowed at any given point of time. A high utilization rate indicates a high demand for borrowing. A low utilization rate suggests a lower demand. In summary, supply APR rewards lenders, borrow APR charges borrowers, and utilization reflects the demand for borrowing. Another essential feature in Compound V3 is that users have two options. They can either lend their assets to earn interest or use the supported assets as collateral to borrow other assets. But unlike V2, users cannot do both at the same time in a single market, which essentially lowers the risk. The other cool feature of V3 is that the portal lets you move assets between different Compound V3 platforms, even across different blockchains. Isolation mode also helps to manage risk by keeping high-risk assets separate when lending and borrowing. In Compound V3, advanced account management features were introduced. For example, users can give permission to other addresses or protocols to handle certain tasks on their behalf, such as voting or repaying debt or borrowing. All in all, Compound V3 is like the cool upgrade that decentralized finance needed. It's all about making things easier and safer. By simplifying how you borrow and lend and adding smart features like isolation mode, it gives you more control over your account. It's definitely turning decentralized finance into something that everyone can get into. Follow us for more.